What is going on, guys? Brian Loomis back with another Freshwater Bandits video. Joined with me today, as always, my co-host, captain, and co-angler, Justin Nilsson. Today we have a very wonky video. I had a video planned that was the boat review, which is right behind us. There might be some plans in the work to switch this out for a bigger family boat, and then get a bass boat in the spring. If that doesn't go through, then we'll do a boat review next week. But for now, we're going to skip the boat review and do something totally different, which I haven't even told you yet. So this is Justin's going completely blind, right? We were supposed to, and you had no warning of this, we were supposed to do a full-blown review and display of the pole dancer, our bass boat, our Justin's bass boat that's helped us out on the tournaments as of late. We're supposed to do a full review of it. However, there's some stuff in the works to be maybe switching gears, and this boat might not be around for long. If it is, we'll do a review next week. But for now, I can't do a full review and then just the boat be gone and then you guys be like, what the heck happened, right? So, just like that, in a blink of an eye, I switched the video and we're going to do something that Justin has no clue about, right? And this kind of relates to now. So lately in western central Indiana, we've been having, thank God, kind of cooler days, right? So what this has resulted into is the black bass species is starting to relate to a fall pattern, kind of like running up shallow, eating on bait fish and stuff. Not full-fledged fall feed, but they're kind of starting to get into these fall patterns, right? So, me being a bass fisherman and you knowing, I'm going to call you a bass fisherman, you ran tournaments and stuff, so both of us being bass fishermen, in one sense of the word or the other, we have to deal with lures, so, you know, artificial baits. So we're using a piece of plastic to trick a fish into getting in our boat, right? So that brings up the topic for today's video. This is going to be a bait review video, and I'm going to let Justin take most of this video on himself because he is pretty much the king of this one bait. There are two in particular, but this one, he pretty much dies on this hill. So what we're going to get into today, let me read a little article first, and then Justin's going to instantly know what I'm talking about, and he's going to get really excited, right? So you're thinking fall baits. This is the article I'm going to read from monsterbass.com. It says, the first lipless crankbait was invented in the early 1960s, and Lewis, I'll explain that in a second, named his lure the Rat L Trap after the old tricky station wagon he drove. After the old rickety station wagon he drove across the southern United States selling his lures and other tackle items. So the rattle trap was a nickname for a station wagon that he was selling lures out of, the lipless crankbait being one of those lures. Lewis in question would be Bill Lewis, created the rattle trap lipless crankbait in 1960, and it has since been a mainstay in every bass angler's tackle box. Right? So why is this important for me to bring so hard Justin into it? So I still to this day, and I've watched him catch fish on this boat during maybe practice or a tournament. I watched him bring fish in on a rattle trap, and to this day I still don't have confidence in a rattle trap, right? So we have not a full-fledged fall feed, but we have a fall pattern coming up. The rattle trap is a mainstay staple for fall fishing, right? Uh-huh. So basically where I wanted to bring you in is kind of more like an interview kind of thing, right? So when did you realize, and I would imagine he's mostly, I don't even know if I can say that anymore, but you predominantly like to target walleye, right? So let's start with that. Do you throw trap for walleye?
Yes.
Yeah? And in what situation, I'd imagine, so you're up north, When are you reaching for a rattle trap instead of, let's say, like your Kinshu minnow?
When I don't catch anything on anything else.
So the rattle trap is like your last go-to, or is it just like kind of one of those things
It's my main go-to because it irritates the fish.
Yeah.
They're not eating it because they're hungry.
Right.
They're eating it because they're pissed off.
Sure.
They're mad at the sound because, well, you have to get the legit rattle trap. You can't buy the cotton cordell. I mean, you can use those. They're not as loud.
Sure.
The actual rattle trap, you're spending more for, but you're not paying for the name.
Right.
You're paying for the quality of the little tiny micro BBs that they put in it. They're not putting actual full-size BBs. They're putting like these micro, they look like, what is that new thing? The Orbeez.
Yeah.
They look like that.
Yeah.
They're putting a ton of those in a rattle
Sure.
trap. If you ever bust one of those open, I refrain not doing that because they're $10 a piece, whatever. But bust one of those open and you see the BBs are so tiny and they make a loud noise. I mean, when I started fishing with Kyle across the street, he's in an aluminum boat. I was bringing a rattle trap. I was literally 15 feet away from the boat, and you can hear the rattle trap in the water like it was in the boat.
Right.
It was coming so loud towards the boat, and Kyle was like, dude, that is insane. Why is it so loud? Because it's an actual rattle trap.
So I guess that answers one of the questions that I had would be, aside from all other, you prefer the rattle trap brand, right? But as you pointed out, over the course of rattle trap getting extremely huge with tournament anglers and every weekend warriors and stuff, prices have gone up, right? So if you had a secondary choice, I'm sure I know what it is. If you had a secondary choice of you're reaching for a rattle or a lipless crankbait, I guess it would be called. So if you're reaching for a lipless crankbait, you don't have the option for a rattle trap. What are you reaching for?
Cotton cordell.
Cotton cordell?
Because I got a bunch of them.
Right. And
because they are like $3 or $4 a piece.
And this,
I mean,
this plays into kind of what had happened, and I'll preface this for the people listening. We were on the boat. We were literally just about to pull out. I think it was during a tournament. Because it was kind of like a last-ditch effort. Maybe not. I think it was during a tournament. But anyways, nevertheless, we were coming up, literally about to bring the boat out, and for some reason, you tied on a lipless crankbait in the crawl pattern. And was it a cotton or a rattle trap?
It was a rattle trap.
Okay. So he ties on a rattle trap, and I'm telling you, if there's any truth to this, I threw every type of lure in my box, including plastics and stuff. Did not catch a single fish. You tied on a lipless crankbait in the crawl color, and you started catching it. So my next question would be, during this summer month, most bass fishermen associate rattle trap moving bait with spring or fall. We are in dead of summer, and you're on the lake.
And I'm using fall colors, orange, crawfish.
So what telling you at the front of the boat, what tells you, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and throw the rattle trap? Like, where did you come up with that out of nowhere?
Because nothing else was hidden. No other lures were working, so throw the rattle trap. That's the last ditch effort, is to throw the rattle trap.
Right.
And you're doing it for the noise at that point. If you're what is it called? What do we call it? Not buzzbait, the chatterbait.
Right.
Chatterbait gives off vibrations.
Sure.
Okay, it doesn't have a rattle, but it gives off vibrations.
Right.
Same concept as the rattle trap. Vibrations in the water. If that's not working, then you need a louder noise, so you put on the rattle trap.
Right. And I'm telling you guys, as soon as he did that, I'm not a rattle trap guy. As soon as he did that, and I watched him catch maybe 4 or 5 fish, because I think you ended that day with like 7 or 8. But anyways, as soon as he did that, he'd bring in 4 or 5, and immediately, I'm not a rattle trap guy. I reached for my trap box and went to the crawl pattern. I don't use trap brand because I have been coaxed into using a certain brand of rattle trap that I'm not sure is the same. So I reached.
I'll dissect 2 of them. I have
both of those brands. Trust me, Rattle Trap and the brand I use, which I'm not giving them clout because they have a following. The brand I use.
I know what brand you use.
And Rattle Trap, very expensive lures, man.
Yeah, but they're completely different. The brand you're talking about, I get it. You're paying for the name at that point. You're not paying for the quality. Rattle Trap's been around a long time, like you said, 1960.
Yeah.
They've been perfecting it year after year, and they're the only ones that put a fin at the top.
At the top, yeah.
Only ones. And that fin, to me, serves no purpose but their brand.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it swim any
something
better.
Different to everybody else's.
It don't make it swim any better. It doesn't make it glide in the water. It's their signature is that little fin at the top.
Right.
And that's how you know you're
almost like Cotton Cordell has that humpback kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kinshu Minnow made the flared out gills.
Sure.
Which they don't make them anymore, which is Matsu.
There are, if you guys are listening, and this isn't a rattle trap video for the brand. This is a Lipless Crankbait video. So you don't absolutely have to have a rattle trap or a Cotton Cordell. There are tons of brands that make a Lipless Crankbait in their various different ways that they think is proprietary. But just like Justin said, just because rattle trap with the fin on top doesn't mean that it does something. It's just different than everybody else. Cotton Cordell has this little kind of like hump shape to it. Almost, I don't want to say a teardrop, but kind of. It has this little hump shape to its back. That's proprietary to Cotton Cordell. But there are like store brands. I'm thinking like H2O Express or Bass Pro or whatever. There are alternative brands like the one I use and stuff like that. And then I think you have like a Walmart brand maybe.
Which Walmart brand is Cotton Cordell?
Right, okay. So, I didn't know that. Yeah. So, which
Ozark Trail is trying to take over, which Ozark Trail also makes a type of lipless, but it's really wide at the top and then it gets really narrow at the back. It's weird. So, I've got 1 or 2 of them in my box, used them, never caught anything on them.
Yeah. So one of the things that people reach for the Lipless Crankbait the most, aside from the amazing noise that it has, because you hit it right on the head. It kicks off so much vibration that these lateral lines of these fish, they just kind of, it pisses them off. You know, that's why spring they're using them for pre-spawn, or even on bed they're pissing these fish off to catch. And then fall feed, these largemouth are extremely aggressive, trying to eat and get themselves set for winter. That they're just attacking the bait strictly out of reaction, right? So, I guess the next question would be, I'm talking dead of summer in July. The only time you're throwing a lipless crankbait is when there's nothing else working, or are you reaching for that in your main staple?
I messed up at the last time we fished. I used the crawl pattern.
Right.
If I'm fishing dead of summer, I'm using chrome.
Okay.
Because you're not just going with the sound, you're going with the flash. It's supposed to look like a shiner or a shad, as you will, in the sunlight, in the water. But you can only do that in kind of murky water, not completely muddy like Rock Village.
Sure.
It's completely dirty. You have to do it in semi-transparent water where it's kind of clear, kind of dirty, and have that chrome lure with the blue top or black top.
Sure.
They only make 2, and that's every brand. It's either blue on the top or black, and it's all chrome. and it has to do that flash, and you'll see it in the water and it'll look like a mirror.
Yeah.
Like your phone in the summertime or in the sun, and you're shining somebody in the eyes. That's what it'll look like in the water.
Right. And I think another one of the more versatile parts of the bait, because like I don't fish the lipless a lot, but I cannot deny the fact that it's extremely loud. It's, you know, it's a all around versatile, and there's a reason that they said in that article that it is a staple in a angler's box. But the reason it's so versatile is this thing sinks fast. Most, if not all, because I don't know, almost all rattle traps, or sorry, almost all lipless crankbaits sink. So it's kind of dependent on how fast you work it, because this is pretty much like a plug and play, right? So you cast it, reel it back, to steady retrieve. So it's almost how fast you retrieve it is going to work the water column. So you can work this lipless crankbait 6 inches underneath the water column or 25 foot down. So how do you go about technique wise when you throw your rattle trap in? Are you waiting 3 seconds, waiting 5 seconds for it to drop, or are you just, as soon as it hits the water, you're starting to crank?
As soon as it hits water, start cranking. And I don't slow down. Rattle traps or lipless are not supposed to slow down. They're a fast retrieve. And yes, they work on largemouth bass, but they work better on northern pike, walleye,
Sure.
like in the river. You find a bridge with pillars, cast a rattle trap or a lipless next to the pillar, pull it away from it. You're going to catch a northern pike. If your waterway has northern pike
Sure.
in it, you're going to catch one every time.
Yeah.
Does not matter, because those fish are fast. Now, I've never caught a muskie ever in my life, which can't wait until
Sure.
I do.
Yeah.
We found new water that we will eventually
Target species for sure.
Very.
You guys are going to see it hopefully next year.
Northern pike, those are old, whatever.
Sure.
I caught my first one. It was fun, and then I caught my next one, and it was a little bit bigger. They were fun too, but then they were both on lipless crankbaits in the open water.
Right.
Okay, and no, they were not going slow, and this was dead of winter, December, casting out in the river
Right.
and catching them with the lipless crankbait. When nothing else would work, tie that on.
Right.
I mean,
so we had mentioned earlier, and there's a study and stuff that you guys can go look up for yourself, because I'm not willing to do the work in editing. So there's a study about moving baits and color being so closely connected, right? So a lot of people say that moving baits need to be either purple or shiny or red, right? So you had mentioned earlier the crawl pattern for spring and fall, and then you had mentioned dead of summer for chrome, right? So aside from those two, are you ever reaching for like a natural or a brighter color or anything like that, or is it just chrome and red?
now I've heard of people catching bass on bass colors.
Sure.
I won't do that. I won't go out of my way to buy a bass lure that looks like a bass.
Right.
I think it's wrong. Yes, I get it. Bass will eat their own.
Sure.
I won't do it. It's wrong to me. And they will go after that before they'll go after anything else, because they will eat their young, or smaller bass will get eaten by a bigger bass.
Right.
Because like you said earlier, they are eating machines. They will
Yeah.
just eat and eat and eat.
Yeah.
They don't care. They will eat until they explode if they can. If they got the food source there, they will keep eating. I won't use a natural color. Like my very first time, Kinchu Minnow came out with a walleye
Right.
baby,
Yeah.
a minnow, walleye minnow, and I used it. And I literally cast it out there the first time and caught a walleye on it. I hated myself on it. I didn't think that they would actually bite that. I was hoping to catch like a northern pike or whatever. No, I caught a walleye on a walleye lure.
Sure.
Dumb. I don't like that because now the fishing came too easy.
Right.
Because they're eating their own young, they're cannibals. That's wrong.
Right.
You know, you got to work for what you're trying to catch. Don't just target one fish. Like when I go to the river, why I tell you all the time why I like the river. I can throw a lure. I don't know what I'm coming up with.
Right.
Because our waterways have sauger, saugeye, gar,
walleye, largemouth, smallmouth.
Supposedly there's northern pike in here. I've never seen them. Even a flathead catfish will eat a lipless crankbait.
Right.
I've seen it happen on YouTube. I've caught my PB not that long on a rattle trap.
Right. Well,
You got all these different fish that you can cast for and possibly catch, and you'll never know until you bring it up to shore and be like, "Oh shit, I caught that."
Well, not only that, but for my guys watching this video, if you guys go back into the Bandits channel archives of videos, and oh man, one of the first couple videos, you caught that Asian carp on a rattle trap, and then
that was an accidental snag.
And then immediately after that, caught a decent largemouth on it.
In the very same spot. I did not move.
Yeah, so it's not like that caused a disturbance between. So I guess the next part I want to talk about is
I probably would have caught that largemouth if he was a little bit faster and I didn't snag that carp.
So extremely young you started like fishing. So I don't know when you started using artificial lures to catch fish.
My grandfather had me starting using those at the age of 5.
But so 5 years. So okay. So lures
My
or traps?
First lure was on the boat. That was hooked on the GPS.
Right.
Or the.
So that was the diving, right? So the diving crank, so the square bill, whatever it is.
And it's bass color.
So
why I won't use bass color no more.
So at what point? Not necessarily did you start, but at what point did you realize that the lipless crankbait was never going to leave your tackle box? Like, do you remember at what age?
The age of 12. I was fishing Sugar Creek up in Watsika.
Right.
Or Watsika, Milford area.
Sure.
And I caught my first smallmouth.
And that was it? You were just hooked?
That was it.
And
then I started fishing the ponds out there. And one of the ponds is behind the old Walmart that turned into a Big R that is probably whatever Big R turned into.
Field and Stream, I think?
Not Field
and
Stream.
Or no, Farm and Fleet?
No,
I don't know.
What's it called?
I don't know. I'm out of options after Field and Stream and Farm and Fleet.
I don't remember, but it's called one of those, and it's by the water tower.
Right.
Didn't know there were walleye in the pond. And I got so fed up that day, I was like, I got to catch something. And then caught a 7.5 pound walleye out of the pond.
So, are there ever times while fishing, let's say you go out fall feed or spring, and you're fishing a rattle trap, and you're just, for some reason or another, you're not hooking up? Or is it just every single time you're going out, you're hooking up?
During fall feed?
Yeah.
Every single time.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's with that crawl pattern, or?
Crawl or tiger perch.
Sure.
Or you can try chrome if it's sunny out that day.
Yeah.
And if you're fishing during the day and it's not overcast. If it's overcast, go with crawl all the time. And it's got to be bright reddish orange.
And I think lately, because I know chrome's a big staple. I know, of course, the crawl pattern rattle trap or lipless crankbait. I keep saying rattle trap because that's just where my mind goes to it.
Well, rattle trap is
Sure.
They're the ones who made it. I mean,
but anyways,
everybody else is copied.
you always think of chrome and you always think of crawl. So I know for a fact that there's a resurgence in the last 5-10 years or whatever, that there are a lot of young, I'm thinking like my age, right, or younger, there are a lot of young anglers using gold. So have you ever used gold, or is there any merit to it?
I've never used gold.
Would you ever try using gold?
Probably not.
Why is that?
I'm old and set in my ways. I'm sorry. I know it works.
You know what you like.
I know what I know it works.
Sure.
I know if wacky worm ain't working, the Texas rig ain't working,
sure,
the chatterbait ain't working, then I'm moving to the red crawl. Or chrome crawl. Or chrome lipless or crawl
lipless, right? So
I'm not moving to anything else. I won't even do a deep diver,
right?
Because I've gotten too many of them snagged.
Sure.
Because just when they sit there and say, "Oh yeah, our lake is 20 feet deep,"
right?
And you come upon an 8-foot deep spot, and you're using a 20-foot deep diver.
Yeah, you're pretty much
you just snagged an old Christmas tree that somebody dumped,
right?
Or a rock or whatever, and you snag it and you break off, and that there goes a $15 lure.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that.
A couple more questions for this. There are a lot of people now that are working a lipless crankbait in a way that, first off, I never want to work. Second off, I've watched your son catch a fish on a lipless crankbait with this kind of method, and in the Midwest, this kind of rings true a lot of the times. And this method is throwing this lipless crankbait in heavy grass and ripping it through the grass. So as you're reeling, it's getting snagged in the grass, and you're just yanking it through the grass. And people are catching a lot of fish on this.
This is why I pull the rattle trap or whatever, or cotton cordell in, and you are in the water, under the water, listen with your ears. It's going to be loud, but if I was bouncing it off the top, it'd be louder.
Right.
Because it's echoing. It's a different type of sound.
Right.
You're going to catch fish that way. Yes, I watched Wyatt do too. That was at Baxter's Pond, or was it Baxter's Pond?
I watched him over in Danville when I took him to Danville.
Well, it was also Baxter's Pond. That was the same day that my wife caught my my big bass.
Fish?
Yeah.
If you send me the picture, I'll put it in the video.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I'll talk to
she
her
don't
later.
get credit.
I'll talk to her
Screw
later.
her. She don't have it. I do. I'm the only one that has the picture. On my old ass 1960s wood rod. No. And yes, bass will eat gizzard.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So
Trying to catch catfish and catch bass.
So I think the next question would be, for people that don't know, is there a certain if you're going out to a lake, so I'm thinking Rockville. We know Rockville, they don't. But if there's a certain part of the lake, we have Rockville that has tree laydowns in the shallows. We have lily pads. We have a deep hole at 25 foot, and we have a bunch of shallow. Most of it's mud bottom. So is there any of that I mentioned that you're going to look at and go, oh my God, a rattle trap would definitely work right here?
The entire lake.
The whole lake.
Yep.
So there's no one spot that's either better or worse. Mm-mm. It's just the whole entire thing.
I know we've always fished the lily pads, and the lily pads do good with the frogs.
Sure.
Shitty with the rattle trap, which I do not understand that.
Really?
Because you should be able to run the rattle trap next to the lily pads and catch one every time.
Well, I would imagine that these largemouth are staging up under the...
They're only wanting topwater for whatever reason. And it don't matter what time of the season. They're only wanting topwater.
I would imagine these largemouth are staging up underneath the lily pads and using them as an ambush point to sneak out or sneak up, I guess, on a frog. So yeah, to run a rattle trap, I know I've ran a Texas rig. I've ran a square bill through it, and which you probably shouldn't run a square bill through lily pads, but I've ran a square bill, I've ran a Texas rig, I've ran multiple baits through the edge of a lily pad, and I haven't caught So, when we started catching them on rattle trap, or I guess when you started catching them on rattle trap, it was mostly a 5 foot flat, open water, kind of close to the bank. Do you think that has something to do with it, or do you think you could have caught the same amount of fish in deep water?
No, it's the shallows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the maneuver is better when it's coming from shore out.
Sure.
If you're fishing on shore with a rattle trap, yes, you can still catch them, but when you're going from the deep in, it doesn't always work as best.
Right.
Because it looks like, because you know the minnows, you watch them,
right.
They're in the shallows. So if they're in the shallows and they're swimming outward, they're easy target. They're bait. They're getting eaten.
Right.
When you're taking a bait from the deep going in shallow, it doesn't always work as well. I mean, that's how I found it.
So you had mentioned you saw a color in my box once. You said I've never had luck on that, but we had just said that Caitlin has had luck on stripe. So that's the sexy shad color. Do you steer away from that specifically because you've never had luck on it, or because you don't trust it?
Sexy shad.
So what I'm saying is, are you open to if the chrome ain't working, if the crawl ain't working, are you open to this last resort? I'm gonna throw the sexy shad.
I'll throw anything at that point.
Sure.
I mean, pretty much it's just to that point where I'll throw anything that I don't normally throw because I'm mad that I haven't caught anything.
Sure. As most of us would be.
Yeah.
So nowadays, and we have proven this with when we went to Academy and bought that one rattle trap, there are multiple different sizes now. So at what point, or do you ever look at size difference, or do you just always go with that medium
Bigger
size?
is not always better in that aspect, no. The common size, which is about 2.5 inches.
I don't know what it is, yeah.
It's like 2.5, 3 inches.
Sure.
That is the common size of rattle trap or lipless, whatever.
Because I know...
I want to say it's 3/8 ounce or a half ounce is the size.
Right.
Because they go by ounces, they don't go by length. That size is the one you want to use. You don't... Bigger is not always better. Yes, everybody always has that motto. Bigger bait, bigger fish.
Sure.
Not always that concept, because I've used big rattle traps.
Right.
Like the one you
Full
bought
ounce,
me, that big chrome one
ounce
that I lost in the river. Great lure, I loved it.
Yeah, I bet.
For the entire 10 casts that I casted. But caught a fish that was only like 8 inches bigger than the lure. Bigger bait don't always mean bigger fish.
Sure, but I think that kind of dips into the territory of what kind of bait it is, because I think even small fish are going to hit that reaction strike for a rattle trap or a lipless crankbait, depending on what you're using. Because we keep saying rattle trap, it's pretty much like the staple for the lipless crankbait world. We mean lipless crankbait when we say rattle trap, unless we're talking about the brand.
I mean,
in this case, it was a rattle trap brand.
You figure, okay, I know it's completely off concept, but you caught a catfish the last tournament.
Right.
6-pounder.
Right.
On a 2.5 inch shad.
Sure.
Really? That fish's mouth could have taken a full-size bluegill, which was 4 to 5 inches of the normal size bluegill that you would use for bait.
Yeah.
But it went after a 2.5 inch shad.
Right.
And I had carp fillets on one of my rods, really close to yours. It took the shad instead.
Yeah.
Bigger doesn't always mean better.
Sure. And I think that's kind of where the next question comes from, because if you were to take out the word lipless and the word crankbait was just there are multiple different crankbaits, including square bills and stuff. So I'm a big fan of square bills. Literally, this is one of the things I will say about that specific brand. I trust their square bills wholeheartedly. So
what kind of square bills?
So,
That's my question to you. What kind of square bills?
So my thing is, I'm using. Are you talking about brand or actual type of?
What type?
So my thing is, I'm using a flat-sided square bill, usually running 3 to 6 with maybe 6 to 8 little BBs in it. Right?
So a shallow runner.
Not really a shallow runner
Well,
because
it's not
in
the long
jerkbait
length
style, right? It's more in a compact kind of either a teardrop or.
I'm sorry, I'm old.
Yeah, you are.
My shallow runners are long and lengthy.
Right.
Needle.
So so basically, so you're talking 3 to 6 foot diving, which is kind of where you're working this lipless crankbait. So
basically, what you're using is what the old timers would say, a glorified Baby O.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Because that's what the old timers would throw, is a Baby O when anything else wasn't working.
So my thing is, what tells you that your lipless crankbait strike is going to get bit over my square bill strike?
More rattle.
It has nothing to do with the fact that
they both may have rattle
and stuff.
No, because your lip. No, I don't have to go to the bathroom. So no commercial break. Your lip, you can only go so fast.
Sure.
My lipless, I can go slow, or I can go fast, or I can go faster, just depending on the water temperature, the way the wind is blowing, whatever. You know, I mean, you got all those to take into consideration.
Right.
If you're not catching them super fast, slow it down. If you're going too slow, speed it up.
Don't let it sink.
No.
That's not what he means.
No. Cast it out there, start reeling. But you got to feel how fast you're reeling.
And you'll feel it on the rod tip.
And if you're using a bait caster, you could be reeling too fast or too slow.
Well,
if you're using a regular spinning cast, which is your open bail, that whole 9 yards, you can kind of control that bait on how fast you want it to go.
Right. And I think that was one of the main issues with our last, and this has nothing to do with the lipless crankbait, so we'll get back to that in a second. But I was thinking about it today, that I think this is one of the main reasons why I had such trouble on our last bass tournament in July, was I had switched my reels from a 5.3 to 1 gear ratio, which was an extremely slow reel, and I went all the way up to a 7.1 to 1 gear ratio, right? And I was working these baits just the same as I would on a 5.1 to 1.
And you were going too fast.
It was too fast, even though I was working at the same speed. So if I were to throw out a rattle trap and I was just to slow roll it, basically, this bait is coming in at lightning speed, even at slow roll. So that is something to take into consideration. Man, for my bait caster people, pay attention to your gear ratio, because that can play a part in a lot of the action of your bait. So I guess the next and probably one of the final questions would be, you have lipless crankbait on your rod, right? What else comes before you throw the lipless, or do you throw the lipless first and foremost? Like, is there, aside from, like, we in Rockville, we go straight to the pads, we throw frogs first, right? After the frog fishing, if you're fishing, I guess I should say this, if you're fishing 15-foot depth, open water, nothing around us, what comes before the lipless crankbait? What are you throwing before the lipless?
Wacky worm.
You're throwing the weightless or weighted?
Wacky worm is only weightless.
You can throw a weighted wacky worm.
I've never done that.
We should try a 3/16
Maybe.
ounce tungsten weighted.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Anyways.
But the wacky rig, little hook,
sure,
hook through the side of the worm, and just cast it out there. That's when, if you're a smoker, as soon as you cast, let it hit the water. That's when you light your cigarette. You just put your hole in your armpit, so you have control of it, just in case, because you know, 9 times out of 10, cast. As soon as it's sinking, that's when it's going to get the hit.
Right.
You know, it's not going to be in the retrieve or any of that stuff. It's going to be the fall. So light your cigarette, take your time, let that worm, because it's not that heavy and the hook's not that heavy, let it sink. Hopefully it made it to the bottom after you got everything done, and you start twitching and you start reeling and twitch, reel. Me, I'm a constant twitcher, as you would say. I'm constantly twitching and reeling. I don't just twitch, pause, twitch, pause.
Yeah.
No, I'm constantly moving it, because I found the constant movement of that worm, yes, it's not on the bottom anymore. It's starting to get in the mid, shallower range. Constant movement on that worm is constantly getting view of the bass. If we're bass fishing, they're going to see that. And no, I have not ever caught a walleye on a wacky worm.
Yet.
No, so I don't ever think that'll work.
So this is the second to last kind of thing, or actually this would be the last kind of question. So with fall coming up, right, I'd imagine you're reaching for the lipless pretty often, right?
Always.
So if you have 5 rods set up, I know you usually bring like 2 or 3. I know it's like 3 or 4 because you have a frog rod. So you have a wacky rig tied up. You have the lipless crankbait tied up. What else you have tied up on that 3rd rod?
In the fall?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's going to be all rattle traps. Every different color that I can think of right off the bat.
You're not going to shoot.
My go-to is going to be the red crawl.
You're not going to shoot for like another moving bait, like chatter, spinner, anything like that. It's just straight up lipless crankbait. Okay. So I guess the very last thing to rope us out on the lipless crankbait, which again, kind of like an impromptu episode. For me, I fish it. I don't fish it often. There's a time and a place, and there's a lot of bass fishing has to do with confidence, right? So I don't have too much confidence for myself in the lipless crankbait, so I don't really throw them that much. However, there are people that are out there that are probably getting into bass fishing and trying different techniques and stuff. So my question would be, if you had some piece of advice to give to someone who's brand new to fishing, who's taking a look at the lipless crankbait, what would you tell them?
Use it. I mean, it's a guaranteed hookup. I mean, if you can find a shallow but deep river system, use it. You're guaranteed to catch numerous amounts of fish, whatever's in that waterway. I mean, other than, your channel cat, blue cat, or carp, you're going to catch anything else that's a game fish that will take the opportunity to go after that fish, or that bait. Sure. Which, so basically, you'll even catch a flathead if you are in the right spot at the right moment.
So basically, like a rule of thumb would be, if your sport fish that you're targeting, whatever that may be, if it eats live fish, it will probably strike a rattle trap at one point or another, right? Or sorry, a lipless crankbait at one point or another. You have preference for throwing that in a river or creek versus a pond or a lake?
You could do that too.
Which one do you prefer?
I would rather prefer a river.
Really?
You get multiple species.
Sure.
And it's always a big question mark when your rod tip is completely bent over. What do I got?
Right.
It's the thrill of, I don't know, I could have a largemouth. I have never caught a largemouth out of a river system.
Yeah.
Never in my life. Caught smallmouth, stripe, spotted, northern, walleye. Never caught a muskie.
Working on that.
It will happen. And a largemouth out of a river. I want to work on that too, because I hear about them in the river system. Never caught them. But when you go to a lake, it's normally largemouth.
Yeah.
Now, that pond in Watsika that I didn't even know there was walleye in, that was a fluke. Once I found that out, then I started using the rattle trap in the river.
Sure.
Then I caught my first northern. Then in the same exact spot next to the bridge, I caught a walleye. They were both huddled up together. You can't tell me they weren't, because casting in the same spot, didn't even get 3 to 4 cranks in and got a fish. Both times. I mean, come on. They were both huddled up together.
So I guess the big takeaway, if you guys are new to fishing, you guys want to throw a rattle trap, I keep saying rattle trap. If you guys are new to fishing, you guys are looking for a bait to use.
Oh no, you're saying rattle trap. I am totally saying rattle trap. Spend the extra money.
Yeah, you mean brand.
Trap.
I keep saying it as if I mean Lipless Crankbait.
And make sure it's red or orange. That's all you care about.
So if you guys are brand new to fishing, you guys are trying to figure out what bait to throw, especially with the upcoming cold, or I guess fall kind of days.
Oh, we're hitting the river.
You cannot go wrong throwing a lipless crankbait. I know I'm not a big lipless crankbait guy, and I know there is one tied on my rod right now. Admittedly, it is a cotton cordell in the crawl pattern. However,
he will this year. Before winter comes, we're going to walk the creek, or what I call the creek. It's a river.
It's pretty much a creek.
It's a river, but it's the creek.
Yeah.
We're going to walk it, and we're going to catch. I'm going to get him on a smallmouth.
Yeah, I've never caught a smallmouth, so it's one of my goals by the end of the year, if not by next year. So if you guys are curious about it, you can't go wrong. Pick up a mid-sized red, maybe even, probably not now, but if you can't find red or orange, then yeah, throw chrome. All right, man. So I think that's going to wrap it up for the Lipless Crankbait bait breakdown of the Bandits channel. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Next week will be spinners. Never caught anything except for a salmon.
I've gotten bigs on spinners. Big largemouth. Anyways,
mine's only been a salmon.
Thank you so much for answering the questions I had about lipless crankbaits. I know if anybody's going to know anything about lipless, it's going to be you, because you're the one that pretty much turned me on.
You want to see my back?
No. Well, trust me, it's going to be a whole nother video in the future of what we have in our boxes.
Oh, God.
And you guys are going to see extreme, for me,
hundreds of dollars of wasted money.
Trust me. For me, it's extremely one-sided on a brand of lure, and you know which one that is.
Yeah, you need to venture outside of your comfort zone.
100%.
Rattle trap.
Right.
And it's literally RAT dash L dash trap.
Yeah.
Rattle trap.
So yeah, you're pretty much the one that got me into that stupid stuff, the lipless crankbait and stuff. I never threw them before then.
I'll buy you it. I don't care.
Alright, so to wrap it up, I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you thumbs up this video and share it on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you guys share videos to. Share it to a buddy or mention it, whatever. If you guys want to see next week's video of us talking, probably either a boat review or a bait review. If you guys want to see next week's video, go ahead.
Oh, you're going to see the new boat. Don't worry.
If you guys are going to hit that, you guys are going to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to get notified every time we upload a video. And also, if you guys want to leave a comment and tell us how we did, or if you have any comments about the lipless crankbait itself, drop a comment down below. I do not, I do not turn off comments, because I just don't care if people are mean or not in the comments. So I don't.
The meaner the better, actually.
Yeah, I don't turn off comments. So if you guys want to comment down below. If you guys want to check out anything that we're putting out, picture-wise, I guess I should say, go ahead and check out Freshwater Bandits on Instagram. That's fresh_water_bandits on Instagram. So I guess that's pretty much it for the Lipless Crankbait. I've got an entire
book to show you of fishing pictures if you want.
I guess that's pretty much it for the Lipless Crankbait. Thank you guys so much for watching. Never forget to keep cranking.